How's it going, guys? Dan here for BladeReviews.com. Welcome to my review of the Blackwater Grizzly 6. This is a knife designed by Robert Young Pelton and Tommaso Ramisi, manufactured by Lion Steel in Maniago, Italy, for Blackwater Knives, which is a California-based company. So, very much an international collaboration here. An interesting knife. It's what I would call a medium to medium-large fixed blade. It's got an overall length of 11.18 inches. It's got a 6-inch blade, and the weight on this knife is 10.23 ounces. So to help kind of build a little more context, I have a couple of size comparisons for you. First up is the Cold Steel SRK, and I've also got the Blackwater Ursa 6, a knife that I have also recently reviewed. So if you're interested, I would tend to recommend checking out that review as well, as the knives do share a lot of similarities. I mean, there's obvious similarities in their design pedigree. From a materials perspective, they are identical, and from a fit and finish perspective, they're very, very similar. So might be worth checking that out. That said, the Grizzly 6 is very much its own knife, and I've done my own separate testing with it and will be delivering thoughts exclusively on this knife. So let's talk briefly about the intended use for this knife. It was purpose designed for something, and that was SEER. And SEER stands for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. It's a specialized form of military training here in the United States. U.S. military has these kinds of SEER schools, if I understand correctly, where they specifically train individuals for urban as well as wilderness survival, hostile environment survival, things like being caught behind enemy lines, separated from the rest of your troops, your comrades. The SEER training is designed to get you home safe, and this knife is designed to be carried with you under such situations. So that said, I've got no military experience. I've got no SEER training. This is very much going to be a layman's perspective, but I did want to deliver some background information, some flavor for you as we move through our knife review. So let's talk a little bit about the blade. It features a drop point blade shape here, very bold and aggressive looking knife. Pretty cool from a collector's standpoint. I have to say I was attracted to the overall design of this knife. The blade shape, it does feature a long swedge, a high flat grind, plenty of belly. It's 5 millimeters thick, and it carries a lot of that steel out all the way to the very tip. So you get a lot of steel. It makes for a very tough knife. It is partially serrated, and that was a consideration made after extensively interviewing and understanding the needs of modern military personnel. They like serrations. It's something that I can see the benefit to if you are in a situation where you're out, you're deployed doing something, and you don't have access to your sharpening equipment, things like that. You know, your plain edge goes dull. Well, you still got some serrations here. You can still saw through things. So I could see the use to serrations. It's not going to be for everybody, but if you're interested in the Grizzly 6, it does come partially serrated. The knife also features a black PVD coating, and it's a durable coating. It's held up pretty well, so that's very nice to see. It's a handsome coating. Should cut down on glare and things like that as well. So a very nice blade shape here. Let's talk a little bit about the steel. It is Nylox, which is a German-made stainless, manufactured by Bowler, actually, and it, in my experience, relatively limited, but I have cut some things with it, and in my experience, it behaves a little bit like a high carbon steel, and that it's very tough, and it is relatively easy to sharpen, and takes a nice edge. So something like 1095, 1085, I see a lot of similarities with the Nylox. That said, I think the edge retention is going to be superior in most cases to at least 1095, and it's a nice, very nice choice for an outdoor fixed blade knife. I did some cut tests with it. I did start off with some 5/8 inch thick manila rope and cut a 3-foot length of manila rope approximately once every inch, and just testing slicing capabilities, edge retention, held up fine. I moved on to some cardboard boxes and proceeded to work through a good deal of cardboard. Again, slicing capability. It's a nice slicer. It's ground reasonably thin. Of course, there's always a fine line. They want the knife to be durable, but they do also want it to cut. So not the world's most amazing slicer, but certainly capable. and the edge held up well. But at that point I did want to touch it up a little bit. It lost a little bit of its razor sharpness, and I wanted to see how the steel would sharpen. So I moved to a couple of ceramic rods. These are actually rods right off my Spyderco Sharp Maker, the medium and fine grit stones there, and it did not take long before I was back to a very sharp edge. So I sharpened the knife up and moved on to some wood. And this knife is not designed for chopping. It's actually got a balance point right in the middle between the blade and the handle. So designed to be light and fast in hand for self-defense, for fighting, things like that. Not a forward heavy chopper, but I did want to see how it would chop and how the steel would hold up. And it held up really well. So worked my way through a 2x4 and then moved on to some like kind of light carving, and finally some tip testing, and basically just beat this knife through a 2x4, seeing how it would handle light prying and its possible use in those kinds of situations. Happy to say the Nylox held up really well. Very tough stuff. Goes back to my thoughts that this almost feels like a high carbon steel in some respects. So I like Nylox. I'm liking it more and more with every knife that I'm handling that uses this steel. I think it's a nice choice. I do like how it's stainless too. So let's talk a little bit about the handle here. What we have is full tang construction. As you can see, Lion Steel's logo is on the back of the knife, made in Italy, and it also shows off a pretty interesting detail here. The spine of the handle has been rounded or capped, and that's a nice high-end feature found on knives like the Chris Reeve Sebenza, and it's great to see it here on the Blackwater Grizzly 6. And in addition to that, you just notice that it's a beautifully made handle. Everything lines up very well. It's been nicely finished. You do have those ultra thick pieces of black G10 there. It's peel ply G10, so you have this aggressive texture. And of course it's got these kind of signature Blackwater grooves on the side of the handles as well. Now these scales are completely removable with a flathead screwdriver or similar object. And inside there's actually a hollow portion where you can store small survival tools or whatever you'd like. So it also does lighten the knife up a little bit. In addition to that, you have this extended pommel with a kind of striking feature, a non-lethal impact device, if you will. It also has a bottle opener or a pry bar, so you get some hammering, some prying capabilities with it. You also get a large lanyard hole as well. And one more feature to note is the aggressive wire stripper jimping here. So this will strip various gauges of wire. It also does provide some traction for your thumb on the back of the blade. I find it to be a little too aggressive for extended use with bare hands, but if you're wearing gloves, it might be appropriate. And if you're looking to rest your thumb on the back of the blade, I like to just sort of straddle that jimping and place it back here. And we're kind of talking a little bit about ergonomics now, so let's go into some of the more general areas of the ergonomics of this knife. Being so aggressive with these grooves, with these handle protrusions there for your fingers, I tend to wonder, at least when I first got the knife, how comfortable it would be. Because the more stuff you got going on with the handle, the more likely that something is going to bother you from an ergonomic perspective. Now, I'm pleased to say that the Grizzly 6 was actually quite comfortable in my hands. Please keep in mind, I do take a larger glove, so your mileage will definitely vary. Not everybody's hand is the same. But I found the knife to be actually quite comfortable like this. I had no real issues with hot spots forming. I mean, there was maybe some slight irritation, and under extended cutting, it's not going to be the world's most comfortable handle, but it provides great grip. And for just general use, I found it to be a pretty comfortable knife. You do get that jimping, like I said before. You can throw the knife in a reverse grip as well, and it's certainly very comfortable like this. So ergonomically speaking, I think it's good for my purposes at least. It's going to be a tough question to answer since everybody's a little bit different. That said, let's talk a little bit about the sheath here, and it's the exact same sheath from the Ursa 6 with a different plastic insert. So if you've already watched the review on that, this is going to be largely a rehash. You do have a couple areas for mounting paracord, an area for a strap, same thing down here. It's fully MOLLE compatible, so integrate it with your MOLLE gear or just use it as a belt loop like I did, and run it through your belt. Either way, you do have a ton of different options here as far as carry goes. There's a large external pocket with Velcro. There's a black plastic liner in here. This is your primary retention method. It's fully reversible. And you have the secondary retention strap as well. And it's made of plastic, so very durable. Yet the whole sheath is still nice and lightweight. It's a nice sheath. It gets the job done. I do like the strap on it, and it's got a nice snap to it. Holds the knife in there secure. Very nice to see. So, nice sheath, complements the knife well, and it kind of brings us to our final thoughts on the Grizzly 6. So, final thoughts on the Grizzly 6. I happen to like the knife a lot. I'm really impressed with the selection of materials here. Nylox seems like excellent steel. The more I'm working with it, the more I like it. Like I said, kind of reminds me of a high carbon steel with some stainless characteristics. The G10 handles are nice, of course. The PVD coating is great to see. It's just, high quality, very well made. The sheath is rugged and functional yet lightweight, so I think it could work well for hiking or perhaps something like this SEER sort of training. That said, I've got no experience, once again, with SEER training or the military, so it's tough for me to really give you a final call on that, but I can't say. It's a beautifully made knife, really nice materials, very well thought out. I tend to like it a lot. So there you go. That is the review. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Once again, this is Dan for BladeReviews.com. Thanks again and take care.